right, so the Philadelphia Eagles have made their first big splash move of the offseason. We could have come up here yesterday and talked about Milton Williams and Josh Sweat going these places, but we kind of knew as Eagles fans that those guys were out the door, and I just didn't want to entertain the people that were saying this team and this defense is falling apart when we have guys in the works ready to go. Your Jalix Hunt, your Ajomo, your Keely Ringo. Like, I have faith in the Eagles' young talent stepping up in Howie Roseman in draft. Now we have a move that on its face value doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to be honest here. CJ Gardner-Johnson has been traded from the Philadelphia Eagles to the Houston Texans for guard Kenyon Green. The teams are also swapping 5th and 6th round picks in 2026. So the Eagles dump CJ Gardner-Johnson's contract for a guard piece in Kenyon Green, who was a former first-round pick 3 years ago from the Houston Texans, who never really fully panned out in Houston. I actually live with a Texans fan, and he's not a big fan of Kenyon Green. To me, this is a Jeff Stoutland rebuild project similar to that of Mekhi Becton. Green traditionally played left guard. I imagine they'll give him some looks at right guard in training camp, a la Becton. To me, this does signify that it's likely Mekhi Becton will no longer be in Philly, which that really blows. That was one of the free agents that I was hoping that we could retain. Obviously, Zach Bond was the big piece, but Becton was probably next on my list of guys where I was like, we don't really have enough guys in the back ready to go and play right guard. CJ Gardner-Johnson, hate to see him go. I know CJ is kind of a guy that had a lot of mixed reaction from Eagles fans. For me personally, my thought has been this is a guy who brings attitude, hustle, energy to the defense. He's really great at crashing down in the run game from the safety position. He can play nickel corner if you need him. Susceptible to being burned and kind of lacking in coverage as a safety. Not a perfect player, but a player that both times he was on the Eagles roster, the defense was very good and they made it to the Super Bowl. And not that wins are a CJ Gardner-Johnson stat, but the defense was better with him both times. I do think defensive backs need a little bit of attitude, and CJ Gardner-Johnson certainly had a lot of bit of attitude. Is some of that attitude the reason that the Eagles are moving off of him? I'm not sure. I would have said yes, potentially, if Darius Slay was still on the market. Maybe this was a move to bring Slay back, but with Slay gone and those two kind of seeming like they butt heads, it felt like CJ was a guy that they were going to keep, and I was all here for it. I have some questions as to who's going to fill that safety spot. Are we going to turn to a Sidney Brown, and is Sidney Brown and Reed Blankenship the expected safety duo? If no other moves are made, I guess that's kind of where I would land. But there's some safety free agents out there that I think the team will look at. Malachi Starks in the draft, another Georgia Bulldog. That's a guy I'd love to get. I don't think he'll be available at 32, but we've seen Howie Roseman trade up in the draft before, so maybe that's a move that this team looks to make. Some real interesting stuff going on in Philly. It's not a move that I really like on its face value, to be honest. A proven guy that's a defender who has been solid for us for a project piece and a guard, but cutting CJ Gardner-Johnson's money makes me think there may be another move to come from Howie Roseman. And I think as Eagles fans, Howie Roseman has earned a bit of a grace period with us. At the end of the day, this is a guy who has constructed 2 rosters in the last 3 years that have gone to the Super Bowl. So I'm willing to give this some grace period, see if there's another shoe to drop, whether that be a Trey Hendrickson, a Joey Bosa. I think Howie has shown that he prioritizes the trenches. He prioritizes the line, and the offensive line is pretty much all but set now. Bringing in Kenyon Green, I think they're going to give him and Tyler Steen some run and have a battle for right guard. I think the offensive line is all but set in terms of starters next year. The defensive line, maybe they bring in a Joey Bosa or a Trey Hendrickson. Maybe they would rather Jalix Hunt be a rotational piece with Nolan Smith. Again, if this shoe to drop leads to a Trey Hendrickson to Philadelphia, I'm sorry that CJ had to go, but at the end of the day, Hendrickson's the guy who had back-to-back 17.5 sack seasons. It's not a move that I would be upset about doing, but that could just be wishful thinking. Maybe Philly's just clearing money because, simply put, they're getting ready to pay Jalen Carter. And at the end of the day, you can only have a so talented roster for so long. That is why I'm so glad we capitalized this year and got a Lombardi trophy. Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think of the Philadelphia Eagles sending CJ Gardner-Johnson to the Houston Texans for guard Kenyon Green? Let me know what you want the Eagles to do with the rest of this offseason. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that button. I appreciate you guys' support. I will catch you next time. Peace.